Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech, episode 95. I am Andrew Zarian on a newly built computer, so if things stop working, do not blame me, blame Intel. I'm joined by Paul Thurrott, as I am each and every week. Hey, Paul.
Hey.
Not in widescreen today.
Yeah, I just noticed my CPU is pegged.
Really?
And I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Oh, that definitely does.
I bet that might be why.
What's taking up the resources? Windows.
Handbrake. Oh. That's embarrassing. Let's see.
Let's watch Paul turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to stop it, but
Well, you know what? This is why, and I guess we spoke about this a couple weeks ago about how I guess we kind of defended Microsoft and said, well, Microsoft betas are not what they were 10 years ago. When a beta of XP would come out, you would kind of cross your fingers and hope everything works. But I guess with Windows 7, when the beta came out, it was pretty stable, and we're seeing that with the Windows 8 release, which is not really a beta, but it is a beta.
it is really stable. All right, so I'm curious to see if my video magically goes widescreen now.
Yeah, let's see.
My CPU has dropped dramatically to 13%.
We could always restart if it breaks.
I don't think it's going to break. I'm just curious if it's going to get better.
So what was it? It was Handbrake?
Yeah. I'm ripping a TV. I thought I had ripped all my DVDs. We were cleaning up in the cellar, and I saw I don't know if you ever watched the TV series Millennium.
Yeah.
It's kind of a favorite of mine. And so we have all 3 seasons on DVD, and I thought, I got to go watch this again. I haven't seen this in a while. And I went upstairs to watch it, and I don't have it ripped to the hard drive. So I said, I should just.
Are you still? I mean, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, and I do want to talk about the cloud stuff. But are you one of those people that takes stuff and rips it, and then you just put the DVD away, or you throw it away?
I keep it all. Down in my cellar, we have all of our DVDs. We have all my CDs. Still. That's something I probably should go through again as well, actually. But yeah, I mean, I don't use them too much. It's funny. Like we had years and years ago, we had a water problem where like the sewer main out at the street blocked up, and it went back into our house and flooded part of the cellar. So a lot of my DVD movies are like water damaged.
Oh my goodness.
Like the DVDs still play, but the packaging is all kind of ruined. And it doesn't really matter because I don't ever intend to play from the DVD itself. Anyway,
Yeah.
like I said, I thought everything I had was ripped. So I might just go through the list and make sure it's all on the home server. But I don't know how I missed this one. I mean, this is like I said, one of my favorites. So it makes me wonder if I don't have more stuff I haven't ripped.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever, and I keep hitting the wrong button. I don't think I've ever sat there and ripped DVDs. I've done CDs, but not DVDs. I'm pretty proud of my DVD collection.
Yeah. See, I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm not into physical stuff. So.
Yeah, but listen, Paul, when you have a collection like me where it has One Tree Hill and Gossip Girl, seasons 1 and 2, you want to show it off. And Felicity.
So my music collection includes music that's mine, of course, but also music that my kids like and that my wife likes and all this. So it's funny. Sometimes I'll take a screenshot of an iTunes screenshot or something, and I always look at what's in the window, and there's always something embarrassing, like a Vanilla Ice album or a, whatever. My son likes rap music, for example. And it's just stuff I wouldn't listen to, and it's just there. But everyone has different like playlists and stuff, and now the Christmas music is in there because it's Christmas time.
I'm very proud of my collection. I've been working on the MP3 stuff, and I guess we could talk about that before we go into anything because we're kind of on the topic. You've been playing around with iCloud and the iTunes matching, which I still have not done. I should be doing it soon.
Yeah.
But I did up all my stuff to the Amazon cloud service.
Yeah, I actually redid that. So
You did? Okay.
I went back and looked at both Amazon Cloud Drive and Google Music, which just came out of beta. And both of those products, when they came out in beta form or whatever form earlier in the year, I, of course, immediately uploaded my content to them. But I didn't do a really good job with it. we were talking about, how anal retentive we can be with music.
Yeah.
You know, if you go and look at my original collection in Amazon, there were podcasts in there, and that stuff shouldn't be in there. And some of the iTunes U stuff somehow made its way up there and all that. So I actually decided this week I was going to do with that stuff all over again. And
So did you delete all the stuff, or you just moved it to
Yeah.
another folder?
yeah, so a couple of days ago, well, the first thing I did was I used iTunes Match to put my music collection up in the cloud, right? So I think we talked about that, how 256K AAC, really nice quality, makes it very easy to download the songs to individual devices and other computers.
You know, I got a question. Actually, a viewer sent the question in, and I guess I'll ask it now.
Yep.
What is the file size difference between the AAC file and the MP3 you originally uploaded?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question.
Is it significantly smaller? Like, let's say a 3-minute MP3 at 128K would be 3.5 megs, right? About 3.5, 4 megs. So what would it be equivalent to?
Right. I don't know that off the top of my head. So
Okay.
let me do this. I will.
Because it's supposed to be smaller.
I can give you an approximation. Yeah, I would think it would be smaller. So
Yeah.
let me see if I can get my laptop is in the other room, uploading my collection of Google Music as we speak. So let me see if I can get on to that. I don't know if I have that thing shared out correctly. If I don't, I won't.
Yeah, that was actually I got asked that question about 3 or 4 times from last week's show.
I don't think I have anything shared over there. Maybe it's on the home group. Let me see.
But and here's another issue. I have a lot of stuff that no longer comes up with tags because I made that big boo-boo of using that software Monkey Wrench or Monkey
Yeah, actually,
Media.
this falls into what I just did. So, how do I backtrack and explain this? I don't remember which one was first, but let's say Amazon came out first, right? So when Amazon came out first, I looked at that, and I think the deal at the time was, I think you got 20 gigabytes for free. My music collection was like 24, 25 gigabytes, so I knew I was going to have to pay for some. But then I think you got some extra if you bought an album from them or something like that. There was some kind of a thing, but I ended up paying Amazon for some additional tier of storage. I can't remember exactly what it was. Let's say maybe 50 gigabytes or something.
Yeah.
So I uploaded my collection, and I would imagine that the way Amazon does it is they have an application that sits there and runs in the background, and it continually looks at your music collection, and as it changes, it uploads the additional songs to the cloud as well. I think that's how it works. So the problem is, and I have no idea how this happened, but you would see stuff if you went and you looked at the list of songs that were in Amazon Cloud Player. They're listed alphabetically, right? So I'm going to bring it up now just so I can see what it looks like. So the first song that I see has the number 1 in it because it does numbers before letters. So it's a bunch of number songs, right? It had some things mistagged. So if you think about like a file name for a song, it could say 01 dash name of song dash, something
Artist.
like that.
Sure.
Those things were showing up in the list of songs on Amazon Cloud Player. And I thought, okay, part of the problem is mistagging. It's that type of thing you're talking about where you have this music that just isn't tagged correctly. And I think and it would upload multiple copies of it. So it would be like, 01, name a song, 01, name a song, 01, name a song, over and over again. So I would go in a Cloud Player and it would be like, this is useless. Like this list of songs is like stuff that I don't even, do. So what I did this time was I deleted all of that. You can delete 500 songs at a time. I had something like 4,600 songs.
You deleted everything that had that 01 whatever.
I deleted the whole thing.
Okay.
I deleted all the songs, all the playlists. Amazon Cloud Drive was empty. And then I went to Google Music, and it's actually out there, like I said, it's doing this now. I did the same thing. Google Music, they actually have a button in settings where you can delete the whole collection. It takes a couple hours. You come back at some point, and the thing's empty, and you're good to go. But on the app on iTunes Match, I had also, previous to this, uploaded my collection to iTunes Match. So up in iTunes Match, my collection is up there in 256K AAC format, right? So on a separate computer, I used iTunes to download my entire music collection through iTunes Match, right? And I waited until it was all there because, sometimes every once in a while, like a couple songs won't go for some reason or whatever it is, but you can compare the number of files or the number of songs until you have it. And the interesting thing about doing that is, well, there are a number of interesting things. I mean, obviously it changes the file format. Like you get Apple's version of the song, except it's not DRM protected, which is pretty cool. It's in AAC format. A lot of my music was in MP3 or whatever. but it also downloads it using Apple's file structure. So, we talked about again how anal retentive we are with this stuff. I
Yeah,
have my own folder structure for music.
Yeah, but see that ruined me. What Apple did to my folder structure is what ruined my MP3 collection. It's been about 3 years. I can't regain control of this MP3.
I allowed it to do it. I just said, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this. This is not
Just do
important.
it. Okay.
So, for example, I'll just make one up. Like let's say you like some group like Van Halen or something. So Van Halen, you'll have a folder called Van Halen, and then there'll be folders in there for all of the albums that Van Halen made that you have. But then Van Halen may have released the greatest hits collection. Actually, they released 2, but whatever. For some reason, iTunes may see that as a compilation.
Yeah, or anything on the
But
here's another issue that I have. What iTunes did was I had, let's say, rock ballads of the 80s, right?
Yeah.
I had that. I had volume 1 and 2.
Sure.
It took, because it's a variety album, it took the artists, and and it's not in iTunes. It took the artists, it split it from each other, and put them in, let's say, Van Halen.
Listen, we've only scratched the surface of how awful I am about this stuff. That's a good example of something where, in my own anal retentive way,
you know what I wish it would do? I wish in iTunes you could actually select all and drag the files into a folder from the iTunes playlist into a folder, and you could just restructure your own stuff.
It's never going to happen. So
yeah, why would they let you?
Because no.
Why would they?
Well, anyway, so okay, it doesn't matter how I do things. I decided in this case what I'm going to do is I'm going to download it. I'm going to leave it wherever iTunes puts it. I went and looked at it, and like I said, they put some things in a compilations folder. I don't quite understand why or how, whatever. You know what? Who cares? So my whole collection is now duplicated on my laptop. Not because I copied it over the network, but because I downloaded it from iCloud.
Okay.
Now on that laptop that has nothing else on it, no podcast, no iTunes U, no nothing else. It just has my music. I install the Amazon stuff. I install the Google stuff. On separate, it takes forever. The Amazon Cloud Player to upload my collection to Amazon took easily 12 hours. And the Google one, I started that one last night at maybe 8 p.m. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's still not done.
Yeah,
so that's going to take twice as long, whatever. So here's the thing. The music uploaders from both of these services are really kind of designed to handle iTunes. They pretty much expect that you use iTunes, right?
I mean, if you're downloading MP3s over the last 3 years legitimately, you're in the iTunes environment. I don't think a lot of people are using. I know some people use Zoom, but the majority, or even Rhapsody.
Well, but what I mean
all
is,
of them.
You made playlists, it understands them.
Yeah.
You use the iTunes music structure, it understands that. Like, it just gets it. So
now that's an interesting thing. How does it work with Zune?
With Zune,
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't have Zune on that computer. Like I said, that computer is untouched. In the Amazon uploader, there's a few ways you can upload. I tried to get it not to do anything with Windows Media Player. I had never even launched Windows Media Player on this thing. I guess I could have uninstalled it. It did, in fact, upload a couple of Windows Media Player playlists, which are things that are built into the software that I then deleted. It also does a weird thing where it appends the word iTunes onto the end of some playlist names, but not all of them. I don't know why. But the interesting thing is, when I did it this way, my music in Amazon is perfect.
Okay.
There were no extraneous songs that have weird names that are the name of the file name. There's nothing. It is literally perfect.
Does Amazon doesn't do any kind of tagging, right?
No, actually, no. In fact, Amazon, I don't have them in front of me, so I'm going to confuse which one's which now, but because I've been working with Google and Amazon. I almost want to bring it up. Does Amazon? Not in the upload process. I think it will take what you have.
Yeah, because Amazon actually has a very, when it comes to obscure stuff, Amazon has a very interesting library of songs that it has access to.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're doing any kind of comparison, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you do it off of iTunes Match, you don't have to worry about it because that stuff is tagged perfectly.
It's tagged, okay.
It's perfect.
Oh, that's
and I look through this list now, and there is nothing wrong.
So do you recommend somebody upload their stuff to iTunes Match, unload it back,
yes,
bring it back, and retag everything?
Yes.
Okay.
iTunes Match obviously is $25, so it's not free. But you know what? what you arrive at on the other end is really clean music. And I don't just mean clean from like a sonic standpoint. I mean, the files are clean.
Well, considering people pay,
Yeah.
$50 for a tagging piece of software that doesn't really work properly.
And people have said like, people are going to subscribe to iTunes Match once. They're going to do just what I described. They're going to move it onto another PC, and then they'll have it forever. And then they're going to stop paying for iTunes Match. But
Yeah.
the truth is, I actually think iTunes Match is going to be very useful going forward regardless, because it gives you that ability to access your entire music collection from any Apple device, which a lot of people have and will continue to have. And you never have to interact with a PC. And let's face it, the worst part of using an iPod or an iPad is having to use iTunes through the PC to sync stuff. So by eliminating that extra bit, I mean, $25 a year, are you kidding me? It's
not.
To me, it's a
not
no-brainer.
much.
I love music. I have a lot of music. To me, this is a no-brainer.
Well, obviously, if you're an audiophile or you're somewhat into music and your collection, this is the service to get. So you have access everywhere. I think this really puts a damper.
But it gets interesting when you combine it with other services, right? So I haven't.
Yeah.
The Google one hasn't finished. I can't see if that's equally perfect. I will say that the Google software they have, the web-based player software, is more rudimentary than what Amazon has. On the other hand, Google allows you to upload 20,000 songs for free, which is significantly better than what Amazon gives you for free. So,
well, Amazon, I thought it was unlimited. I thought the Amazon library was unlimited. I know that they give you 5 gigs for non-music.
Okay, so maybe something has changed.
Because I got screwed with that, because when I went to upload my stuff to Amazon when I got the Kindle, it said you only have 5 gigs. I'm like, okay, my library is about 100 gigs, so let me buy a 50 gig one. I deleted a bunch of stuff.
Okay, so here's my understanding is that temporarily, for a limited time offer, Amazon does offer
Free music.
free unlimited storage of music. But what they're saying is it's not forever.
Okay.
To be honest, knowing Amazon, it probably eventually will be forever. But then you get this 5 gigs of storage for other stuff. But Amazon Cloud Drive for now is absolutely worthless for other stuff. It doesn't work like SkyDrive. I mean, it's...
Yeah, but I kind of got tricked into buying 50 gigs of storage.
No, I did too. But I think I paid the 20 gig price or something like that. I didn't pay $50 for it. I can tell you that. I know that. I wouldn't have given them $50.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I gave them something.
Yeah.
I gave them something.
I don't know what, I mean, if you had like Word documents or something and you wanted to store them in the cloud, I cannot imagine how, I don't think you could use Amazon for that right now.
It's interesting how we're back to music, though. Music kind of sat back for a couple of years with the way that we're handling our music, and it became all about video.
You know what this is? It's weird. There's been this fight in recent years about what's the better forum for music to take. Is it a subscription model like what Reel does and what Zune does, or is it like an a la carte model like Apple had done? And the truth is, it's kind of not either. It's this kind of service. This is like a hybrid service. It takes your collection of music that you've been walking around like a doofus with managing it on different devices, and just puts it up there and says, "Don't worry about it. It's just up there. You can get it. You can get to it from your devices." Obviously, that requires you to have a decent connection. But it's the same way that we handle things like your Kindle ebook library from Amazon or whatever. I mean, there's no reason for you to micromanage a file or a collection of files. Remember, you'd download, like, God help you if you ever bought like a movie from iTunes. This thing is like this precious resource. If you ever deleted that thing, it was gone forever. You'd want to make a backup of it. You were responsible for it. Now you can just buy something and not worry about it. If you delete it, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be up there in the cloud.
Yeah, very interesting stuff, though.
Yeah,
I gotta do it this week because we're talking about it almost every week, and I haven't really done
I know
it
I'm like obsessed with it, but
it is interesting to many people, and I got a lot of emails about it because many people feel the same way we do about this stuff. It's a big deal to many people, especially now that we're so connected with our media everywhere. You have it on your TV, and you have it on your iPad and your iPhone. You kind of want it to look good.
Yep.
It drives me nuts when I'm playing something on the TV, and it'll pull up the album. It's like Led Zeppelin. There's no imaging, nothing.
Sure.
It's like 01 Led Zeppelin dash.
Absolutely.
The ocean dash.
But now we've moved to this thing with an Apple TV is $99. It's really cheap. Connected to an Apple TV, to an HDTV, and you can play music hosted in the cloud that you own against a photo slideshow of your own pictures that could be up in Flickr, it could be up in iCloud, it could be in your photo stream, and none of it is. That thing doesn't have to be connected to a PC at all. It's just out there. It's on its own, and that's neat. I just think that's cool. It's a, when I wipe out my computer, I had that hard drive crash, right?
A while
that was
ago,
my
yeah.
iTunes collection. It was in the old world, I would have lost all this stuff because this was the center.
Yeah, and it
Now
wasn't
it's-
backed
now
up
it's up in the
somewhere.
cloud.
It wasn't backed up somewhere else.
Right. Well, actually, in my case, it was. But I mean, the point was that was like the master copy.
Yeah.
So every time you lose that, you lose something. You lose maybe the last album you imported or some changes you made or whatever it was,
Yeah. So I want to.
Sorry,
I want
I just-
to.
I
No,
can
no.
just
I feel the
go
same
on
way.
about
I
this
feel
one.
the same way about it. I want to talk about the Verizon, the details about the Verizon deal with Microsoft on the Xbox, and also you told me that Comcast also had something put out today.
Right.
They kind of announced that what they're going to do exactly and how this deal is going to work. The big mystery around it. We still have no idea what it actually is until we see it.
I think
but-
actually I think I can now say what it is.
Okay. What is it?
We are 1 week until the public unveiling of the service, which I think is not coincidental. I think this is why those companies have come out and said.
Do you think there's a reason why they held off?
Yes, I don't
Okay.
think it makes sense for a content distributor to talk too far in advance about what they're going to do because it makes what they have now look like crap.
Okay.
I think they wanted to wait to ensure that it was ready to go. In the past, there was some confusion over what this stuff was. Were we going to be able to use the Xbox 360 as a set-top box? In other words, get rid of the cable box. How wonderful would that be? Use it for DVR of live
Sure.
TV. Oh my God, how wonderful would that be? That's not going to happen. So this is not an opportunity for you to get rid of cable, nor is it an opportunity for you to get rid of your cable set-top box, unfortunately. But what it is a way for these companies, Comcast and Verizon Fios and others, to pump their content out in a different way. And the way to think of it is it's the equivalent of on demand.
Okay.
And in the case of Verizon Fios, some live TV content that will stream over IP on certain networks. And
I believe
I'd have to bring up the list, but there is a list of some of the networks that have signed on to do this through Verizon.
I believe
HBO
they
was
said
one of them.
26 depending on your package. So I guess if you have HBO and Showtime and Stars.
Yes, you have to subscribe. Right. So the point being, you can't eliminate Fios the service, but if you have Fios the service, this is another way to access it. Some of it, not all of it. It doesn't replace the box. But you can do live streaming of channels like it was CNN, Comedy Central, Food Network, HBO, MTV, Nickelodeon, Spike were some of the ones I had seen listed.
I saw
and-
Bravo. I believe all the NBC channels.
Okay. So, why is this valuable? I mean, I have to say my kids actually spend a lot of time watching on-demand stuff, not DVRing stuff, which is a very different way of doing things. And the reason, it's funny how this happened, we had gone away we do home swaps in the summer. And so we swap homes with a family from Europe typically. And we wipe out our cable box, right? In other words, we don't want that thing recording shows while they're here because they may want to watch TV one night and they'll get some message that will say,
Yeah.
hey, that we have to record The Simpsons. Did you want to change the channel? And they'll be like, oh, what the heck? And, they would probably say, yeah, go ahead, record it because they wouldn't want to screw something up for us. So,
I would say no. Don't record it.
well, okay, but different people would handle it differently. But I mean, the point is when people are staying in your home,
Yeah.
you don't want them to have to deal with that.
Sure.
So with much moaning from the children, I sit there and I delete all of the shows it doesn't record anything. So then we come back. And of course, we're really lazy. So I will go and I'll set up the recording for the 4 or 5 shows that I care about.
Yeah.
And before this last summer, they had done the same thing. And this year they didn't record anything. And now what they do is they just watch stuff on demand. Like they just stopped recording TV. I think a lot of it is because there's so much good stuff on demand now, right? It's not just movies; it's also TV stations.
Yeah,
TV
I mean
channels.
they've expanded their on-demand service I mean,
Yeah.
10 times
So
over what
you know,
it used
I'd
to
have
be.
I'd have to invent a show. I don't know, like The Office or something. If you went into on demand on your cable box, probably the most recent 4 or 5 episodes would be available,
Yeah.
and typically that's what you would have recorded with the DVR anyway, right?
Yeah, you're not recording stuff. Well, yeah,
Yeah, I would
most
think. I mean,
likely.
you record them and then you watch them. You don't leave
Sure.
them on there for too much time. So, for as far as my kids are concerned, on demand is does the job. But that's interesting because that's what this service basically is. It suggests to me that for a lot of TV usage, it might be possible to use the Xbox 360 instead of the cable set-top box.
Well, yeah. The way I see it is, a lot of people nowadays have a cable box in every room. If my media room has an Xbox, I may not get a cable box because I already have FiOS, and I'm not going to watch too many things on there. So I'll
Right, like a secondary TV, especially, right?
yeah, not your main TV, but let's say it's another option.
You know what would be nice is if there was a way for you to, from an Xbox 360, watch shows that were on the DVR of the cable box in the house, right? One of the neat things about the Xbox and this service is that it's IP based. It just relies on an internet connection. When you have a cable box, a guy has to come to your house. They have to run wire if there is none for that room. They install the box. They do all that stuff. It's kind of a big deal, but you can put an Xbox anywhere in your house with a Wi-Fi connection.
I wonder how good the quality is going to be. I mean, I'm assuming it's HD, but
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft.
how good of
They don't get a lot of press for this, but a couple of years ago, I think it was maybe even 3 years ago.
the ESPN.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about a specific service so much as technology they built into the Xbox that allows near instant on HD streaming. So, for example, if you do something like buy a movie from the Zune service, and then you go back later, a year later, and you're like, I want to watch this movie again. If you bought the HD version, it starts streaming. And the way it does it is it streams in standard definition. And there's actually a little gauge on the side. You can see it going up. The quality gets better and better. And over the span of maybe 10 seconds, all of a sudden it's in 1080p. And it's beautiful. So,
Well, they did great with the live content. I mean, they had live programming on there for a while. So I guess that was their test to see how well it's going to work. And it did a great job on the Xbox.
yes. So
with the
I think
ESPN
the
service.
Xbox, it's funny, we've been talking about how this thing may be on the way out from a video game standpoint, that they've obviously reached the apex. But for delivering video, like HD video, the Xbox 360 is pretty good. I mean, there's been some rumors that the next generation Xbox may come in two different versions, where the low-end version is basically a set-top box that will be designed just for this stuff. And I have to say, I mean, the current generation of hardware, this is very viable. It works great for that kind of stuff.
I mean, the current generation of hardware, it's old
Yeah.
hardware. I mean, it's a 700 megahertz power PC.
Yeah,
And
right.
look at what it's able to deliver. Look at the content it's able to do. So
So 2
it
years
might
from
be-
now, you could probably get a version of this that's like a single chip or whatever on a board without any cooling, and it could be a pretty decent set-top box for you living
Sure.
room.
My question is, now that we have these deals between the cable companies like Comcast and Verizon, what I'm thinking is, if this is successful for them, can we see some sort of integration like how Google TV is doing with the cable companies, where it's one device almost? It kind of piggybacks on it. I can't see why they wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. So Microsoft does things a very particular way, right? If you think about what Google TV is, actually, it's kind of like TV. It's sort of that last step overlay that sits on top of the screen before you see it.
It's a pass through. Yeah, it's a piggyback
Yeah.
system.
Microsoft partners. That's the way they do things. And they don't partner with TV makers, and they don't partner with electronics gizmo makers. I mean, they do, in other businesses. But in this case, they partner with the actual guys controlling the content, the cable TV companies and so forth. When you partner at that level, what you're doing is delivering their content to your device. So you're working with them. So I think the Google TV, if done right, would allow you not to have cable, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Google TV could work better with cable if they did it right, but it could also work without cable. That's not how Microsoft does stuff. They partner with those companies. You're still going to need cable. I think the ultimate end game here would be, you still pay Verizon, Fios, or whoever for your cable and your phone and your internet and all that. but you get to use the Microsoft hardware instead of their box, right?
Yeah.
Or in tandem with their box, and that thing I just described where you could play a DVR movie from the box to your Xbox 360 in a different room. That would be cool.
I would love to have it always on, and
Yeah.
that always seems to be the problem for me. Like even with Roku, people praise Roku. It's a great device, but it's not. It's always on technically because it's always running. There's no power on off switch, but I don't use it as much because it's not integrated. I use Google TV almost every single day in my bedroom.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I'm not looking at it as an enthusiast. You and I, Paul, will use these devices. I'm thinking as a regular consumer.
No,
if
honestly,
it's sitting there.
I find myself just, you put up with stuff. You put up with the lousy Fios DVR because it just kind of works and it's there and you don't have to go switch to something else.
I've been following, I'm a big fan of DSL reports.
Yeah.
And whenever I have an outage or anything, I'll go there and I'm 70% of the time somebody's posting, hey, what's happening in the Northeast? There is a gigantic thread. Verizon was supposed to get an update for their cable boxes to version 1.9. This update was supposed to come out a year and a half ago. Some markets have received it. Some markets have not. Some markets had it, and then it was reverted back. It's a whole mess with the deployment.
What does it do? Or does it,
well, one thing, the big deal is that it has a number of features. It's supposed to make it faster. You're supposed to be able to connect the box to it. I don't have a whole list off the top of my head, but one aspect is that it's supposed to, like your guide, it's supposed to make it full screen in HD.
Okay.
So it's a cool feature, and the layout is different. It changes actually the layout and the look of it.
The problem is on that hardware,
there's not much you could do.
No matter what they do, it's always going to be
sure. But there's a whole, the hardcore group that wants it now.
Yep.
The last deployment, Queens was supposed to get it, which we have VOH zones. I guess that's how they do the zonage.
Okay.
Do you know your VOH?
No.
Mine is 15. VOH 15. VOH 15 was supposed to get it the week of the strike.
Coincidentally.
And then they turned around like, oh, no, we can't deploy it. They're on strike. The strike ended. We still have not received it. And it's this whole thing where people are saying, well, how come we can't get an answer? How come there's no update for this stupid box? And it's this, constant fight with this little group of people that want it now. And I think we face that. I think that's what people want because they don't want to go through another device. No matter how bad it is, we still want it. Which is bizarre.
Well, it needs to work like Google Chrome works, right? Where these updates occur in the background. You don't have to manually deal with them in any way or go look for them or, they just happen. I mean, this thing, the computer in a cable set-top box should be smart enough to look for an update, download it, look to see when you're recording TV shows, and pick a time at 4 o'clock in the morning where you're not recording anything, and choose that time to update the box.
You don't think that we're going to see some sort of partnership between the cable companies and Xbox? I'm saying, let's say this is successful maybe in a year from now where they would say, okay, here's all the channels, just use this.
No, I do think it's possible. That's what I mean. In other words, this is another way that this could happen. I don't understand the many facets of these relationships that could probably prevent that from happening. The Xfinity blog post about, the Comcast blog post about the stuff talked about the different ways that they've gone after customers and allowed them to do different things. And, they have an iPad app and they have some stuff in the web and obviously they have their cable stuff and, and now they have this. So this is another, it's just another way to do things. So, I mean, right now, this is just a way for companies that already are delivering services that you pay for to kind of add more value. And I think for people, the Xbox 360 is popular enough. A lot of people have it and will want to do this. Mm-hmm. Because, there's stuff that you get on the Xbox 360 side that you're not going to get through the cable box. The ability to watch shows virtually with other people, chat in real time, have those stupid little avatar rooms where people are jumping up and sharing in their chairs and stuff, whatever. I mean, this will all be enabled through the 360. It's going to be a unique thing. I mean, whether people use it or not, I guess we're going to find out. But
and I think that's going to be right now. I mean, I'm not that crazy about it either. How you could, it's not something that really appeals to me. But I think to many people that might be the future of watching a TV in their living room, where they could watch the show and they could have like 15 of their friends watching it with them.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, people will get a cable box because they have to, and they may never even plug it in. The subset of whatever's available through the 360 may be enough for some people. I
Yeah.
can see this being huge for college students and
Sure.
and for multi room homes, where the kid has a 360 in a room, or maybe you have one in your bedroom, or you have a separate room where the adults watch TV and the kids watch in another room, or whatever it is. I mean, I could picture this being nice for those secondary TVs.
Well, most people, I mean, you look at the way that content is distributed now. People are not sitting in front of a television to watch their shows.
Yeah.
And it's this crazy thing where we got used to watching it on these little displays. We went from, wanting 50-inch and 60-inch and 70-inch TVs that take up the entire living room to sitting in front of a 13-inch laptop and watching it that way.
It's still better, on a big screen, I guess. But,
Sure. But I mean, most people, you look at I could speak about my brothers. They don't watch anything on the TV. Everything they watch,
Yeah.
and they both have high-def TVs, and they both have cable. They watch everything on their computer. That's just where they watch everything.
I watched a businessman on a flight watching a TV show or movie. I wasn't sure what it was, but on one of the older style iPods, what we now think of as an iPod Classic, which you kind of forget those things can play video. And this thing is like the size of a postage stamp. But he was watching, I don't know what it was actually, but he's watching it on a plane,
Yeah, it's interesting, but I got a number sheet. It was a study. Internet users in the United States are watching more videos in October than they ever have in 1 month span. 184 million viewers consumed more than 42.6 billion videos. Right. ComScore data reveals. That's astonishing. If you look at what people are watching, and here are the top ones: YouTube, Vivo, Hulu. What is Microsoft sites? What would be?
Well, but first of all, Vivo.
Yeah, Vivo.
What?
But here's the thing: Vivo got bought by Google and got integrated in YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So it's music videos. Vivo is now pretty much what they do is they sign the deals with the record labels and they put it on Vivo on YouTube.
Okay.
What's Microsoft sites?
Well, so Microsoft has a number of things, and the big ones are going to be MSN, which has videos, and then also MSNBC.
Oh, really? So that would count as Microsoft sites?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else could be in there. I mean, they shut down their YouTube style service, what was it called? I think it was just called MSN Videos.
I thought it was like Video Search or Video something.
Yeah, whatever that was.
And then Yahoo had 551 million users.
This list is fascinating because I look at this stuff like Viacom Digital. What the heck,
So that you know what that is? That's every single Viacom owned website that has a tiny little clip. But that'll also probably count for whatever you get on Hulu that's a Viacom video.
Right.
Because it's under Viacom Digital. So they're double counting here.
Okay, but okay.
And then you look at Facebook.
It's up in that top 5 or whatever, top 10.
AOL 410 million and Facebook 346 million. And Facebook does not distribute video. It's users distributing the video.
By the way, this could be a slight exaggeration. I don't think I've ever watched a single video on Facebook ever.
Like a Facebook video.
I don't even think it's come up. I don't think I've ever seen one not to click on. I just don't think I've ever seen one. I know you can share videos.
Sure.
I've never done it, and I don't believe I've ever seen anyone do it. So I'm not sure what to say. That's weird.
No, I see a lot of people putting YouTube stuff on there. Yeah, they just post YouTube videos.
Sure.
That's all it is.
Oh, post YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. That I've seen.
Okay.
I thought you meant. What I mean is like a home movie type thing.
Oh no, I've never seen anybody do that.
Okay.
Actually.
That I have seen. Yes. I'm sorry.
It's useless.
Yep.
And my browser crashed, by the way, on the Mac. Warning: unresponsive script.
Nice.
Stop script.
It's like 1998 all over again.
Yeah.
Would you like to disable ActiveX?
I think of ActiveX every time that happens, and I picture my desktop video background going black. That's what I picture. But this is fascinating how content now. This is a big number. I mean, you look at 20 billion people watching videos on Google sites. I mean that's a humongous chunk out of the people that are watching content, and I know that it's a very spread out way of distributing content, but is this the right way? And
Right.
how do people how do you get this a little bit more organized for the next 5 years to say, okay, you know what, Viacom says we're just going to release everything online
Well, I mean, a lot of people are just standardizing on YouTube. Even Microsoft posts all of their stuff to YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah, it is interesting.
I'm surprised that the average length of the video is as long as it is. That suggests that things are changing a little bit because in the old days, like 2 years ago, these things were like 30 seconds long, right? That was like the attention
That's what you
span
can
of a
watch.
typical American. So people are actually watching these videos,
But
which
you know
is
what?
interesting.
That's another thing. How many of them are actually watching it, and how many of them are just playing it?
Just have them on, yeah. Yeah, because you can trigger a video and then go do something else.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
I do too.
I just put something on and I walk away.
Yep.
I was watching a TED conference on education, and I just left it on. I was just listening while I'm
Well,
doing
it's like
stuff.
if you were really there, sometimes you get up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's exactly what it's
sometimes
like.
you go get something to drink or whatever. I mean, I don't think I watch videos like this. I mean, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, I link to YouTube videos that Microsoft might discuss or something. What's not on here is Netflix.
Oh, that is interesting. I guess
and-
they don't consider that watch. Well,
Well, it's not on the web, and it's
Hulu's there. Why not Netflix?
because I think most people access. Well, no, actually, Netflix is on the web. Most people access Hulu through the website.
You know
most
what? They
people
probably doing-
access Netflix through the website too.
What I'm thinking is that since Netflix is a pay service only, they couldn't get the data.
Okay. I mean, I think Netflix would rejigger this pretty dramatically, but I would say that, I mean, most of the video watching I do does not fall into these categories.
What kind of video watching do you do?
Well, it's obviously heavily tilted toward pornography. No,
Sure.
it's mostly,
By the way, I'm telling the engineers to just take that and just put it in loop.
no, that's fine. No, mostly it's, well, we do Netflix streaming. We do Netflix DVD stuff. And so like last night, for example, my son and I watched a couple of episodes of Burn Notice. But I watch a lot of series. I mean, I have like the DVDs I've ripped. I watch a lot of documentary stuff. I'm trying to, I can go actually.
And how many of these people are watching it in their living rooms? This is
I
another
watch it
thing.
in bursts. Like I watch video every day when I have lunch because I work at home, right? So my wife and I will watch an episode of like House Hunters International, or we'll watch part of one of the few series of TV shows that we watch. Sometimes if I'm alone, if she's away for the day, like I'm catching up on the series Dexter right now, for example.
Yeah.
So I'll watch like a third of an episode, maybe, or half.
I didn't
something.
stop it and get back to what you were doing.
Well, yeah, because I eat lunch. Eating lunch, really takes like 20 minutes.
It's a very different way of watching compared to traditional
Yes.
media, and this is going to deeply impact the way that ad revenue is generated from
Yeah.
content online, because it's not that with commercials you're kind of forced there if you're not, and then most of the time you get up and you go and you come back, but that's not really effective online. I feel that people get more aggravated when they're watching something on Hulu and Hulu has a commercial break instead of and then with the TV I think we're kind of used to be like, okay, it's a commercial break.
Even in instances where people leave their TV on all night, Thursday night, 4 hours long, they're not just doing that anymore. It's not like it was 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right?
Like
even-
Leno's on and you keep it on, you fall asleep to it.
Yeah. I mean, even when I'm in front of the TV all night, like I was last night, I have my laptop there. I'm kind of putzing around doing stuff on the side. I'm distracted, I'm not saying it's healthy, by the way, but rarely will I sit. It happens. I mean, actually, a couple of times a week, maybe sit down with my kids or my wife, and we'll actually watch a movie. That's not very common. I mean, that's not most of what I do with the TV or with with video.
No, I don't think most people are doing that anymore. I think it's a totally different way of watching television. You're engaged in 5 other things rather than
Yep.
watching TV, and kind of TV encourages you. If you watch a sporting event or you're watching some sort of whatever, they're kind of telling you like, oh, go follow us on Twitter, go engage in a Twitter chat with Conan
know.
O'Brien
I know.
while the Conan O'Brien show's happening. And you're thinking, I'm like, is that really smart as far as advertiser? Like, do the advertisers want you to do that? Like, you're talking on the computer while the show is happening, so you're really not paying attention to the show.
But what that's showing is that you're really engaged with the show, and that's what the advertisers want.
Yeah,
You
like,
know,
oh, look,
they
you know,
want those numbers. I mean,
Conan's going and chatting with them. It's a very interesting way of doing it.
yeah, it's all entertainment is like this. You know, I grew up in the Boston area and I would go to Celtics games as a kid. It was very old school entertainment. They had an actual organ in the building. There were no cheerleaders. There was no nothing. And then I moved back. I moved away for 6.5 years and came back. And now where the Celtics play is what I call generic NBA entertainment. There are cheerleaders. There are people, you know, shooting T-shirts into the audience. They have little things that fly down from the ceiling. They give gifts to the kids, and they have people that make human, you know, pyramids and
Sure.
there's all this stuff, you know. And as I say to my brothers sometimes at these games, you know, eventually a basketball game is going to break out and we can start paying attention again. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all this stuff. You have to keep people. They're not, you know, it's like a whole family entertainment thing. It's not.
But
you're
what'll
not there for the
happen if
game anymore.
But what'll happen if that stuff is not there? Are people gonna,
Well,
you know,
Yeah, people. don't
halftime
know.
is gonna
I
come
think
like,
it's what-
oh, this is absurd. I need to be engaged right now.
Listen, this is something I have to cope with. This is like me getting older because I want to be there. I am there for the game. All I care about is the game.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the other stuff. I'm actually a little crotchety about it, and I look around me and I recognize that for the many children in the audience and the people smiling up at the Delta Dental smile at the camera moment or whatever the hell it is, are very excited about this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a big deal for them. So who am I? I mean, I complain because that's what I do, I guess, for a living. But I just don't. I don't like it. But I recognize it, and
Sure.
you can see it in this stuff too. I mean, people are watching video in 5.5 minute bursts. I mean, how weird is that?
It's a very strange thing.
It's different. You know, people commute, watch a little bit of a video on an iPod or an iPhone or whatever, and then they go to work. And then they come home and they probably do the same thing again.
Well, I mean, even at work, you look at what people do at work, and they're always engaged in some sort of media. Even at
Yeah.
work, you know, they have some sort of podcast going, they have video going, they have Facebook going, they're looking on YouTube videos during their break. I mean, it's constantly there's media being absorbed. I can't even speak today. Absorbed.
Yeah.
And that's a totally different way of doing things. Before you would just put on one crappy jazz station,
Just
at the
deal with it.
you know, what?
And just deal with it.
And deal with it. That's all you have. That's the only thing your building picks up, and now you have so many different options. So content delivery is totally changing.
This is only semi-related, but you reminded me of this. I was talking to some friends last weekend, and we were talking about Pandora. And I actually pay for Pandora, and I'm sort of vaguely aware of some of the things you get for paying for Pandora. For example, one of the things you get is the ability to skip over more songs, and you get higher quality streaming if you want it. So they asked, does it get rid of the limits on listening? And I said, the limits on listening? What do you mean? And I said, well, we've run into these things where it's near the end of the month, and it actually tells me I can't listen anymore because you've listened too much in the month.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no idea. I didn't even know they did that. But I mean, they have this thing on so much, they've somehow exceeded some.
Well, there is a premium service. I know that.
Yeah, that's the one I pay for. But in other words, they've got the free version,
Yeah.
which I'm sure most people do, and it works great for what it is. And I guess they have it on at work all day, every day. And on the 28th of the month, they're shut out of Pandora. Like I
That's
didn't even know
weird.
that could happen.
I didn't know that.
I don't know.
I wonder what the limit is now.
I actually, I mean, not to beat this one to death. I went and looked, and I didn't see anything about a limit, so I was confused by that.
Maybe
I mean, this
they
is
don't.
another. It's just this would never happen with the radio. You know, it's like those pledge drives they have on like NPR or PBS or whatever, where it's you want to listen to the show, but what you have to listen to is a plea for money because they don't have advertising.
Well, they're gonna have to do that. They're gonna have to have ads.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you
that's
look
the
at
thing.
satellite radio.
Well, or you pay for it. So
Yeah.
when you don't pay for it, I guess sometimes you just don't get to
Well,
listen.
satellite radio, you pay for it, and now they still have ads because they put ads on every talk station
Sure.
because they need to generate more revenue. I mean, satellite radio was that answer, right? No commercials.
Right.
Then you listen to Howard or something, and there's a commercial just like in regular radio.
Well, Howard doesn't pay for himself, but
No,
yeah.
Howard's making his $100 million a year.
Yep.
Howard's cashing in.
Yeah.
By the way, those are the best ads. He'll do like a live read. He has no idea what the company is, but he's like,
Yeah,
I don't care.
yeah.
I just made 100 mil.
Clearly doesn't care.
Clear. No.
Yep.
Well, how do you think they're going to distribute the content in cars? I mean, that's the next big thing, right? How are you going to get this live internet content in your vehicle?
Actually, so I have not looked into this either, but now there are cars that have Pandora built in.
Sure.
And probably Spotify, whatever else. I actually did see Pandora in the context of a new car. This is like a feature of the car. So I'm assuming that this thing has some kind of a Kindle-like 3G thing, or maybe I don't know how they do it. I don't know what it is, a satellite.
Well,
internet?
I know Ford actually has a USB port for your USB, I guess, MiFi card.
Okay,
you
actually,
just
that's cool. But
plug it in.
I'm just saying, okay, maybe that's what it requires. Like I said, I haven't looked into it. I'm curious about that. But, we've done the thing in the car where we drive around with my wife's Android phone or my Windows phone, and we stream over Bluetooth over 3G as we drive from whatever service, Spotify. We've done it
Okay.
with Pandora. That actually works surprisingly well.
I've never done the Bluetooth audio.
Yeah, it works fine.
I have it in the Infinity, but I've never done it.
We have satellite radio, and you'll drive under the lamest little bridge, and the
And
thing
it's
will
gone.
pause for a minute and go away.
Yeah.
But then you can drive around with a cell phone that has like Spotify over 3G, and it works fine.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So according to this, it works with Bluetooth.
What does?
Some of like in the Chevys, it'll work
the
with.
Pandora. So
it'll
they
work
mentioned
with Bluetooth.
you're looking at a Pandora
Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ford actually works with their App Link, and they have a USB thing in their new ones, which is that's going to change the industry, I think, when it comes to music and radio in the car. The fact that you could have this USB stick and pop it in the car, and now you have everything. You have internet access in the car,
Yeah.
and on all your devices. I think it works up to 5 devices. It becomes a hotspot.
Sure.
So that's going to change everything. But again, you need another piece. You need another unit. I think what they're going to do is say, okay, listen, if you have 3G service, if you have whatever, your car automatically piggybacks off of that. It's there.
I've
don't
never
have to do
used it,
anything.
but supposedly one of the benefits of having an AT&T wireless account is you get to take advantage of free Wi-Fi at whatever these AT&T hotspots are.
Yeah.
That are apparently everywhere. I've never run into one or never been aware of it, but
But here's the other issue. This is not. Now you're going to buy a USB stick. Fine. You're going to pay the $49 a month for it, and it's still not unlimited. You're getting 5 gigs.
yeah.
You're gonna go through that. If you have a long drive, you're gonna go through that immediately.
Just streaming music.
Just streaming music.
Yeah, and you want to be careful with that. Actually, my wife and I both have unlimited 3G or whatever through AT&T and then Verizon.
But it's not really unlimited.
No, it is because we're grandfathered in.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, most people will not have that. So you want to be careful. If you have 200 megabytes, that's not going to happen at all. If you have 2 gigabytes, you're going to want to watch that. I mean, how weird would it be to use your entire data allotment on Pandora?
Yeah, sure.
Commuting to work or whatever.
What they'll probably do is say, okay, you know what? If you're listening, I guess they'll have to determine what device you're listening on and say, well, if you're listening in the car, it's unlimited.
Yeah.
If you're
Sure.
listening to these services, it doesn't go with your data plan. It's unlimited. That's
It
how they'll
seems
do
like
it.
this is something that could be subsidized through the car maker, that this is for some limited amount of
It
time.
seems it could be easy, and they could just say, well, everything is unlimited now.
That's not the way things
Yeah.
are going.
Just-
But yeah, I agree. It should be that way. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that crazy? Like you're buying data, you have internet access, and they're saying you're only getting 5 gigs. Sorry.
Yeah.
And you say why? You're like, well, we don't want you to run 4G in your house. This is for mobile devices, not your house.
Why does Microsoft have 25 gigs of SkyDrive storage that you can't actually access from anywhere? I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing. It sounds good on the surface, but then you get closer to the fine print and you realize.
By the
it's a
way,
little-
did they do some updates to SkyDrive?
Yeah, they did.
Anything good?
Yeah, it's interesting in the scope of SkyDrive. I don't think it's going to change. It doesn't change what I just described, for example. There's no new Windows integration stuff to talk about. But, performance and some updates. On the Windows Weekly podcast, I share OneNote with Mary Jo Foley, for example, and they've made it easier for within the web apps that are on, the web-based version of Office apps to share documents and do things like that from the app, not, in the in the folder interface, and a bunch of UI changes and stuff. So, in fact, I'm gonna look and see. That stuff's supposed to be going live
I'm looking at the video right now.
anytime now.
You have the video on Win Super Site. I'm looking at the video. In 8, it's going to be integrated, right? Or we still don't know.
Yeah, it is, and what we don't know is to the extent of that. But some of the stuff they're going to allow you to do is, putting your profile up on the web and being able to access it from any place that you log in and stuff like that. So
I still feel like many of these services that do that, it's still rocky. It's not really smooth. Like I think Apple dropped the ball when it comes to having multiple accounts.
Multiple accounts, yes.
I think if you have more than one account, and then, like, I don't want each of my pictures that I take on my iPhone go into my iPad.
Well, then you can
turn it off,
or you
yeah.
you have to enable it for that to work. It's like anything else. They do a good job. What you just described works, and that's actually kind of neat. The problem is you don't get things like the ability to auto name the photo based on where you were at the time. Like when you manually import photos from your iPhone to your computer, you can say, hey, this is Kelly's birthday party. Hey, this is the family Thanksgiving. You give those things names and they take on meaning. When you automatically sync things over iCloud, over PhotoStream, the Apple feature, the file names are all img_813. They don't have, they lose all sense of meaning.
Yeah.
And that's something I think they can fix to some degree, and I'm sure they will. But I do give them credit because one of the neat things about it is I could right now take a picture with my iPhone, and then I could go to my pictures folder on my computer, and it's there. And they're not directly connected in any way, but that all happened through iCloud, and that works really, really well. And it's neat just to be able to do that.
I haven't set that up on mine yet, on my Mac.
It's worth looking at.
Yeah.
And it's the original quality picture. It's not like a compressed, condensed version. It's the real picture.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I should try that. So
yeah,
you just
definitely
set
look
up
at it. Just to replicate the pictures, it's worth it.
just not to upload.
Well, imagine a scenario like you go on a trip to Europe. It's like, and you take your iPhone, and that's what you're going to take pictures with. And you take like 500. Well, I don't know, I'm not sure what the limit is, but you take 500 pictures.
Yeah.
And you have this thing connected so that it's going to do this automatically, right? If your phone gets stolen in Europe, chances are pretty good that all, or at least most of those pictures you took, are sitting back on your home computer.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. They may not be named the way you want them or whatever, but they're there. You didn't lose them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess that'll work.
Apple lover, Paul Thurrott.
Apple lover, yeah.
So, I'm just saying, it's legitimately useful.
Well, are they gonna? Do you know how can you do that on a Windows phone without an iPhone? Can you with Windows Phone? Does it work like that?
It's cute that you think that's possible to do on a Windows phone. So on a Windows phone, you can configure it to automatically back up all of the pictures you take to SkyDrive, but they're not full sized. They're compressed.
Why would they do that?
Versions.
But you're not talking about a 20 megapixel camera taking a picture.
Well, I'd have to let me go. I guess I can look.
It's like a what is it? It's like a 5 or 8 megapixel camera.
A 5 or 8 meg. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter because the version that it puts up in. I'll go look. It's like a.
That's baffling. Right. Why wouldn't they integrate?
Why would they? Because they hate you.
Yeah. Well, Android is the same way. I think Android hates you even more.
Yeah. So this picture this is a picture from last year, but picture I took in New York City last July with my, I guess it would have been the prototype Windows phone. That thing had a 5 megapixel camera. So what does that work out to? Like 3,360 by 2,800, whatever that resolution is. The picture saved on SkyDrive, the version saved on SkyDrive is 719 pixels by 539. It is absolutely worthless as a record of that thing. It's what it's good for, and the reason they have it is for sharing on the web. So if you wanted to share a photo on Facebook or whatever, or if you were one of the 6 people on Earth who actually used SkyDrive for some reason to share photos, it does work for that, and it's okay for that. But they don't even give you the option to automatically back up a high-quality version.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? That just...
Well, bandwidth and
storage
and whatever. But it's... And plus, I think if they did that, you would ultimately run into the problem where you actually did fill up that storage space, and then
Yeah.
they would have to deal with that. They would have to contact you and say, "Hey, by the way, you're getting close to your limit," and it becomes a big management nightmare. I just think it stinks you don't have the option.
Just give us the option.
Yeah, I think they will eventually.
Well, with Android, it's a whole thing with Android. I mean, Android's like
Yes, it is.
Android's like, hey, try to take a picture.
Right.
Let's
Actually,
see. Let's see you do it.
My wife's phone does not have a camera button, and I was trying to take a picture with it, and I kept turning it over. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Where's the camera button?" She's like, "There's no camera button."
Yeah, no buttons on Androids anymore.
Camera.
We still don't have a release date, by the way, for that new phone.
Nexus.
For the Nexus. There's no, I mean, December 8th for Canada, but we have not received a release date yet.
So I think I told you about my on again, off again purchase of an Android tablet and my desire to look at the latest version of Android. So I'm definitely going to get that. I'm going to get that phone.
You're going to get it, yeah. I mean, I'm forced to because I don't want to get an iPhone.
I'm forced to too because I only have like 17 smartphones and I feel like I need another one. But
Yeah.
I haven't looked at Android seriously, especially the software. Just the various updates.
Well, ice cream sandwich should be a lot better than gingerbread. So that's the hope.
Last year I got a phone through work, a Droid X, which is okay. The camera is so lousy compared to the cameras you have today. But what's interesting about it is they've updated it so that the version of the software in it is Android 2.3.3, right? Which is actually fairly modern. My wife's phone, I went and looked because I was just curious, which is a new phone. It was a new phone as of August. It came out in August or September or whatever. Her version is 2.3.4.
Yeah, and
So-
I have 2.3.7, but mine is I have Cyanogen running.
Okay, so you can see it's interesting. Depending on the phone I'd gotten a year ago, that might not have been the case, right? I could be on 2.1 or 2.2 or whatever. I don't know what the versions are, but so I don't know what I'm getting. I mean, I look at this thing and I don't know. I can compare the software interfaces for various things, and they're different between the phones. So your phone's an HTC, mine is a Motorola. They have different. They have different weather gadgets or widgets or whatever they call them. I mean, there's different. Yeah, it's all different. I sort of. I mean, I get why people like them. But it makes it confusing. It makes it hard. Imagine if every PC came with a custom UI on top of it. It'd make it very hard to say, hey, this is what Windows is, and this is how you review it, and this is how you compare them.
Well, they're saying that Ice Cream Sandwich will be the last fragmented OS.
Ever?
But for Android.
Yeah.
So I guess what they're
Okay.
gonna
I
try
hope
to
so.
bring it in.
I want to see it.
But I mean, there's so many devices out there, Paul, with the same hardware, the same specs,
Yeah.
and they're not getting the updates.
Yep.
And it baffles me how they do that, but nobody else is really doing it that way. I mean, there's
Yeah.
Windows Phone,
No,
but
Sure.
it's so limited the variety of phones, and it's so new that they really can't compare. But the
funny
iPhone's the
thing
only
is,
one.
If you look at this logically, if you look at the three big platforms, the two big platforms and Windows Phone, iOS to me seems like the safe choice. It's going to be good but not leading edge, very high quality, very consistent.
You're gonna be able to make a phone call and take a picture.
Yeah, it's going to be nice. It's going to work. Windows Phone to me also seems fairly safe. They're going to do a good job of upgrading everyone. Everyone's going to move along to the next version. It may take a little longer for some of the phones, but everyone will get it. Android seems like the Wild West. It seems like the type of thing that would be for techies. It seems like if you were the type of guy who would specifically say, I want to run Linux and not Windows, and here's why, and you would have all these reasons, Android would be for you. And yet, Android is the one that's selling the most. It's so...
But it's not.
It's
yeah,
like
but that's,
Bizarro world.
Yeah, but it's not a fair number. I mean, I think that market share number that we see, they have 50%, they have 60%. It's a very skewed number because there's 1,000 Android phones on the market on every provider, and the iPhone was only on AT&T up until a year ago. So it's not a very it's not a fair assessment of the situation. What I'm
Well-
dying to know is the Sprint numbers for the iPhone.
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen much about it. I know that they've been
I don't
selling.
think they're very good, actually.
And
That's why.
that's interesting. I wonder why.
This is not something I know a lot about, but my understanding is that there isn't the iPhone kind of data access on Sprint not so good. Isn't there's some kind of a data speed limitation you get there? Or something?
I'm not too sure, actually. I'm not
There's
sure.
something like that.
But
I don't think that having the iPhone on every carrier. This was always the big, the kind of the red herring. You know, if only iPhone was available on
I don't think
all
that's
of the
going to
carriers. You know, I think we're at the point now where that's not going to make the difference because right now, you know, when a normal person walks into AT&T or Verizon or wherever and says, "I want the best phone that you have," it's not iPhone. You know, there's always like 3 or 4 Android phones on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to buy because, like, I think we talked about this. You know, this is like a 2-year purchase, right? You're going to be on this phone for the next 2 years. It's a big deal for people. They don't want yesterday's phone. You know, they want the best phone right now. That's a problem for Windows Phone, by the way, too, because Windows Phone is never the best phone right now. It wasn't even the best phone for 1 second.
Well, people ask me all the time, and they're like, "Well, what should I get? I want to buy a new phone." I'm like, "Do you have an iPhone?" They go, "No." I'm like, "Buy an iPhone."
Yeah.
And they go, "Why?" Well, why would I do that? I'm like, "Because the experience is overall the best. They're not the best phones. They're
Sure.
not the best looking phones." Well, no, I guess it is the best looking phone. No, those Samsungs are pretty nice.
They're all,
They're-
iPhones they're pretty.
They are pretty. They're great phones. They work,
We all have different aesthetic.
and they work. And that's all I tell people. I'm like, because it
Yeah.
works. They're like, "Well, how about Android?" I'm like, "Android doesn't work."
Android always had that kind of weird thing around. Like we talked about music. You know, getting music onto an Android phone for a long time was a disaster. You know,
Yeah.
it's a little better now. It's a lot better if you use the Amazon.
But what if
stuff.
I want podcasts?
Yeah,
You know, what
well, that was one of the big questions. You know, the Amazon, the Kindle Fire was coming out. People would write me and they would say before I had one, "How am I going to subscribe to a podcast in this thing?" I don't know. You know, like I don't know.
I was reading this article and people were saying, "Oh, you know, podcasting is dead." No, podcasting is not dead. Podcasting is dead for Joe Schmo that wants to do a podcast and thinks that they're going to make $1 million from doing a podcast. That's why we've seen podcasting numbers go down, is
Sure.
because the average person is not saying, "I want to be on the radio."
Well, podcasts are like blogs. You know, anyone can start one.
And
It's, very easy
that's
to
what it
start.
was in the early 2003, 2004. Everybody had a blog. And they're like, "Well, nobody's going to my website."
Everyone thinks they have a book in them. You know, I have this awesome story. If I could, you know, just had the time, I could write a book. You know, the reason we all don't have a best-selling book is because the truth is we all can't write a book. So
By the way, I am writing a book.
there you go.
The title of the book
Yes.
is "If It Rained Marbles, We'd All Be Dead." The Andrew Zarian story. And it's me holding a tiny little umbrella with giant marbles raining on me.
That's good.
Yeah. Thought of that all by myself, and I stole that idea from somebody else, and now it's mine. I actually, one of my co-hosts came up with the title. I was like, I don't know, he just quoted it. I'm like, "That's the title of my book, and you're not getting any royalties."
Nice.
Yeah. But with Android, it's such a fragmented. See, somebody wrote, "I prefer watching it live than downloading," and I
Yeah.
hear the total opposite from people saying, "Why do you always concentrate on the live? I like watching it. I like downloading it, so you don't figure out a system to engage with us." And it's you're gonna hear both sides. We get thousands and thousands of downloads for this show every week, and I'm getting very nasally because I'm starting to get sick again. But
Yes.
it's very interesting how some shows on the network do phenomenal live, and some shows only people want to download. I mean, that's just how
Can
it
you tell
works.
if it's because of the show and the type of show it is, or is it like a time of the day thing?
No,
or?
I think it's the type of the show. I think this show you could listen to it within the next couple days, and it's not dated. When you listen to my show, that's on Friday night. That's on Thursday night. It
Yep.
gets
Very specific to that
It's
day.
very specific to that day and for that time and for the mood you're in at that hour.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know.
I
don't-
think that has to
I'm
do
not
with
so
it.
much a consumer of this stuff. I do subscribe to some podcasts. Most of them are not tech podcasts, but
I subscribe to your podcast. I'll subscribe. I subscribe to Windows Weekly. I'll do Twit, and then there's a couple other little podcasts. Like I subscribe to a comic book podcast, but only because I want to see what they're doing on theirs. A lot of my
yeah.
subscriptions have to do with like work and what we could do better.
Sure. No. Okay. Fair enough.
That's why I subscribe. But what do you subscribe to?
So I was going to say it may be useful to listen to some non-tech related podcasts because at that point it's purely about style and it's something different just to see how they, kind of relay the information. I subscribe to some travel podcasts like the Rick Steve Travel with Rick Steve's podcast. He's kind of a big on the European travel stuff. And he's got his own weird little vibe. I mean, he's got his own personality, but he's an interesting guy. The only tech podcast I subscribe to is the NPR one, and I only listen to it when I'm traveling. So I don't use it to keep up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, see, I have a bunch of NPRs that I'm not really listening to, but I'm subscribed.
Yeah, the one NPR podcast I do listen to is called On Point with Tom Ashbrook.
Yeah.
This show it's a daily news show, so it's very topical. Although it's always very well researched and they have great guests. The guy who does it, Tom Ashbrook, is fantastic. He happens to be from Boston, but it's syndicated all over the country, and it's really good. It's just a really good talk show. It's basically a talk show.
But why isn't Google doing the service? Especially since they have the music platform already, I thought they would announce that. Hey, listen, we're taking Google Listen, which is the podcast service that they've had.
Into Google Music, yeah.
And
I hope that they do, because right now that thing is kind of screwed up. Why doesn't Amazon have one built into their?
Well, I guess they don't see it as a priority, right? Or they feel that Apple is so big with the podcast where they can't compete with it.
I don't think they're afraid of Apple. I do agree it's not a priority. Amazon is very pragmatic. The way that company was started was Jeff Bezos and I think a couple other guys sat down and said, okay, here's a list of 10 things we could sell online, which makes the most sense. And they whittled it down and started with books. I think that's how they make decisions. They look at the content, and I'm sure they were like TV shows, movies, music, check, and we'll see if they get as far as podcasts. I hope they do. There's some unique content that right now is only available through iTunes. iTunes U, if you haven't looked at it, it's like podcast.
It's phenomenal, iTunes U.
But it's educational. I listen to that stuff all the time. In fact, I would say this year, I have probably listened to and watched more iTunes U content than I have actual podcasts. Although I would put them into the same category.
Yeah. Well, what other? You could hear Joe Schmo talking about tech,
right,
on a million different shows. But when are you going to get a lecture from Stanford?
Exactly. Well, today I did. For example, I just listened to a Stanford thing. There's some great history. I don't know what to call them. They're not podcasts. Classes, I guess. Princeton. I've listened to the history of France from I forget the year, 1863 to present or whatever it was, which was fantastic. The history of the Western civilization. And some technology related ones as well, including like the iOS programming stuff from Stanford, which is fantastic. And then their introductory level programming stuff, if you're not familiar with software development, is great too. I mean, it's completely free.
Yeah, which is amazing.
It's really good stuff. I wish that stuff was more readily available. I mean, you could download it and put it on anything. You could download it in iTunes U.
How long are the lectures generally?
Well, it depends on the class and the school and all that. I mean, I would say, let me look at one. The ones I've got on here now are, the iOS ones they're an hour and 15 minutes long. Yeah. The entry-level programming ones are 45, 50 minutes.
Yes, I mean, you're not talking about like an audiobook, which is like 9 hours. That's the thing.
But it's an entire semester of classes. I mean, and by the way, like for example, for iOS programming, that class is occurring right now. So if I were to, I don't know if they had a class, what stage they probably did have, I don't know. Well, I don't know when they meet. So I updated the collection this morning, and it downloaded a show a recording or whatever that was recorded yesterday, lecture 11.
Let me go to iTunes. Let me see.
The class is occurring right now. So, it's amazing to me. I mean, you talk about all the incredible stuff that occurs through, the advances of technology and everything. The ability to, sort of not participate in, but to, just to learn like this is awesome.
Yeah, iPhone and iPad development is the number one.
Yeah.
It's fall 2011 from Stanford. I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's just hilarious. Yeah, it's the same guy who did it last year. He's really good. This would be one way to learn how to do this, and it's free.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you'd walk out of this and be a competent.
This just
iPhone
says something
developer
about the future of
necessarily, but
education.
It's incredible. It's just incredible.
I mean, there were a lot of people. It's a weird transition we're going to hit in this country because a lot of people, especially my generation, I'm coming from the generation of you're going to go to college, and your only options are lawyer and doctor. That's what you're going to do.
Sure.
And that's the only way you're going to get rich. And a lot of these kids went to school, and they didn't become a lawyer or doctor, but they went to college. They did the 4-year thing. They came back, and they're like, "Where's my $100,000 job?"
Yeah.
And they got laughed at, and now they don't understand, and they've done one job to another job to another job, but they're not reaching that level of pay that they expect due to their education. I think now we are starting to understand. Well, you need more than just going to a class.
Yeah.
You need to have some sort of creativity. You need some sort of drive. You need some sort of main thing that you're good at, rather than just going and getting an English degree and not doing anything with it. I think my generation is suffering from this. Yeah, I mean, 30 years
wasted
ago,
a year of my life in art school. I I understand, but
I mean, but you're thinking outside
even
the
from a
box,
higher level,
Paul.
though. Just thinking about life in general. I mean, we all kind of check in and check out every day, and hopefully you have a job and you go to work and you have a family and all this stuff. But I mean, ultimately, just as like a human being, I mean, you kind of want to learn on an ongoing basis, regardless. I mean, so regardless if you ever do go to college, or regardless of whether you get a degree, I mean, just as an adult, I mean, moving forward, you should always be seeking to learn something, whether it's through
But I
traveling,
mean, this is
if
a
you can
great
do
way,
that, or whatever. I mean,
but this is a great way to kind of figure out if you are interested in something and possibly in that direction. Yep. I don't think that option was ever available before this.
Are you kidding me? This itself, just as it is right now, I think is one of the biggest, most important thing that's happened in technology in the past 10 years. I think it's humongous. It's so great.
Yeah,
it's
I'm actually I should start listening in.
Yeah, there's some really neat stuff in there.
Let me see what's.
I happen to like history. There's a good series on the history of Rome that I did a long time ago. John Merriman does some, history of Europe, history of France stuff that I really like. I happen to like that guy's kind of vibe or whatever, but there's all kinds of awesome stuff in there. Everyone likes different stuff.
Master of Photography. That's a good one. I might take that. National Geographic is doing it. I read that as the Discovery Channel is doing it.
Like they know anything about photography.
Like they know anything. I actually saw Discovery Channel. I don't know why. Yeah. And I'm like, I guarantee you Hitler and UFOs are going to somehow be involved. That's all it is.
Hopefully in the same
in the same lecture, yeah. I hope.
Yeah.
There's some amazing lectures here.
Yeah, there really are.
Yeah, look at this.
There's one, I don't know, this can't have been a class, but there's one, I actually downloaded this. It's World War II in the news. And what it is a collection of, can't see how many there are, 68 of these recordings. Recorded from, I don't know, 1939 through 1945 or whatever. They're newsreel recordings of the day. So as things happened, big things like Japan surrenders, D-Day, but also small things like things
that we don't really
have remembered.
Yeah,
they were these newsreels, and now you can watch them for free. They're all 10 minutes long. They're not huge recordings, but they're the real things that people. This is how people got news in 1942, 43, whatever. Incredible. It's incredible.
I was watching a special. I think it was on like the military channel. It was about the crew on the plane that dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, and they caught up with them. I guess it was done quite a few years ago because they weren't that old, and they were showing like their different points of view of what happened and what they expected they were doing, and it was such a fascinating look at it and the way they presented it because it was done. It would show you, pictures of them then, and it was them talking now about each other.
Oh, wow.
And what their thought process was like when they were dropping the bomb. He's like, yeah, the guy that opened the lift gate, I could just see him chewing on a cigar, and he had no idea what he was doing. Like, he had no idea that it was such a big deal that they were dropping this bomb. So when the bomb fell, they're like, wow, this is a big one. And they had no idea how big
awesome.
How big it was. It was such an interesting
big bomb.
Yeah. So I like those point of view stories from the war.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by that, but it's interesting, to see tiny little stories here and there, rather than, the Germans invaded Poland, the war started.
Right.
That's pretty much what you hear.
You already apparently know more about World War II
I
than
summed up
anyone
World
I've
War
ever
II.
talked to.
The Germans invaded Poland. The Americans dropped the bomb. And we saved
And then
the war.
some stuff
apparently.
happened in between.
Yeah. And by the way, we saved the war. We saved everybody. Just
Wow.
how it works.
Okay.
You know.
The Russians might take a slight
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the UK viewers will definitely not agree with me. But that
No,
that
actually,
is kind
the
of.
UK viewers would agree with you, but
Yeah. But that is what you were taught in school.
Sure.
When you look at what you learn in public school, like, oh, the war happened, we saved the war, end of the world.
there's probably a single battle, or at least a single campaign of World War II, where the Soviets lost more than everyone else combined in the entire war. So I mean, I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
know.
I'm yeah.
Yeah.
All right, time to wrap it up, Paul.
All right.
5:30
Well,
already. Wow, look at that.
We'll get back to the World War II stuff
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah, we're actually gonna go into the Russian side of the war
yeah.
next week.
Right, the crucial Russian
and the
campaign.
Siberians that came to the rescue.
And right, the underreported
Yeah.
Burma stage
Yeah.
of World War II.
The Siberians on their skis and their guns.
Yeah,
That's how they were fighting, actually.
that's true.
They brought-
Actually,
they
that was
brought-
one of the reasons they
Yeah.
had so many. There's
That's-
so many screwy things about World War II. I'm sorry.
I'm a big World War II fan, but I'm a fan of wars, actually.
Yeah,
That's
who
what I
isn't?
should say. Who isn't? But there was a very, I think Discovery or one of history did that World War II in HD.
Yeah.
Or World War Armageddon, the World War, and it was so interesting because they did concentrate on the Soviet
Yes.
side,
Yes, they
which was
did.
done very well. Actually, it wasn't that typical story.
I have all of these.
Yeah, I do too. Another thing we have in common.
So this year happens to be notable, and I'm curious about why. To be honest, there are a number of excellent World War II histories that have come out this year. I don't know why. Like why? And you'd think 60 years later, how much more new information? Actually, as it turns out, there's a lot.
Well, there is a
Yeah.
lot, and
I wonder if some Russian information caches have finally become public or something. I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, there's all this new information about World War II.
I've always been fascinated by like the individual stories. My best friend's grandfather fought in the war, and I would hear stories from him constantly about the war and what it was like. And then I found stories about his brother, which that it's so many. That was in Italy, and then he went to Africa and he fought in Africa. Such a fascinating story. And then I heard stories from my grandfather, which lived through the war in Eastern Europe. Which was, everything was getting destroyed. So I've always been fascinated by the personal stories and what people did during the war, military and non-military.
Yeah.
Because it was such a crazy time to live in if you think about living in Europe at that time.
I actually can't even imagine
Yeah.
what that must have been like. I mean, there were,
Paul and I are starting a podcast on World War II next week.
Finally.
And Mary Jo could do the beer show.
You know that someone is tweeting, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do it for the entire, 6 years of the World War or whatever, but every day they're tweeting as if it were that day in World War II. And it's not this day in history. It's this day in, say, starting in 1939 or whatever.
So it's like November
They're literally
29th.
chronicling the war through tweets as it occurs in real time, if you will, X number of years after the fact. So for this thing to work, they would have to do it for the entire, I want to say 6 years that the war was occurring.
Oh, that's interesting. What's the Twitter? What's the Twitter handle? Do you know?
I don't know. I read about this
I'd
in
love
the
to
New
see
York
it.
Times, so I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Well, that surely beats the Mayor Bloomberg in Spanish Twitter account that's made.
Yikes.
Yeah, there's I think it's like Miguelito Bloomberg is like the handle, and this woman tweets everything Bloomberg says in Spanish because he likes to actually come out after he does a press conference. He's like, "This is for all my Spanish-speaking citizens," and he'll sum up a 1-hour press conference in like 3 words.
That's awesome.
Like cargo boom. He pretty much said for the car bomb.
Yeah.
He'll do stuff like that. But go to our website, guysfromqueens.com. You could download this on podcast. We're on Zune. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher Radio. You could listen to us live on Stitcher Radio on the go. We're pretty much everywhere you could imagine. We're even in the Microsoft Windows Media radio directory. Out of all places, that we're also listed there. You can check out Paul every Thursday at 2 p.m. East on Windows Weekly. Also, check out winsupersite.com. Paul, are you subbing in for Leo on the radio show?
No,
No? Maybe then somebody just messaged me the wrong thing.
not that I know of.
Someone just
I don't know that I would be good at that. But.
someone just private messaged me and said, "Hey, don't forget to say that Paul is subbing in."
No,
I guess that is
guessed,
so weird.
I guessed it on a different Twit podcast last week, but
I guess maybe they're mistaken. I haven't heard. Nobody else has said anything. But
it's news to me. But
yeah, please give me more details.
I'll let you know how that goes. Yeah.
PM person that just messaged me. Paul's actually just messaging me live.
Yeah, exactly. Did you? Yeah, cool stuff about Paul.
Paul's opening up for Fish next week.
Right. I'm going on tour with the guys from the Daily Show.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll see y'all next week on What the Tech.